So we are getting ready to start. So today, Scott is going to kick off our Grow Big Red virtual learning series for May with his Consider These Natives presentation. So Scott, we'll let you do your introduction. Let everybody know who you are.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for joining us today here. My name is Scott. I'm with the Douglas Sarpy unit in the Omaha office. And today we're just going to be talking about some of the native plants that you might want to try to consider or even think about. You're going to see a range of trees, shrubs, perennials, and one annual, but they're all plants that you might want to maybe think about and go on and so forth. Uh, there is a QR code smack dab in the middle of the screen. And Elizabeth just put the handout link into the chat. All the plants except for, I think, one or two, I have a plant list. So that way you can, all the plants that I'll be talking about today, you could go back and take a look at those. I also have a copy of the slide PowerPoint, so you're welcome to download that as well. All right. Technology is great when it works. All right, so one of the things that we often get the question about, what's the Midwest? We talk about Midwest natives. We talk about regional natives. So what counts for the Midwest? And it's really hard. If you talk to different ecologists, botanists, horticulturalists, they're all going to give you a definition. This is kind of a map that speaks to me, that helps define what the Midwest is. We do know that Nebraska is a very diverse state. As you move from east to west, the climate and the elevation drastically changes. So this is kind of what is considered to be the Midwest. I kind of drew that extra line because that kind of is where that boundary starts to change from a prairie to the more forest, tall grass areas. So this is kind of just a general snapshot. Like I said, you'll talk to 10 different botanists, horticulturalists, and you will get 10 different answers. But one of the questions we often get is, what is a native plant? And technically, there's a couple different perspectives, but generally it's defined as a plant that was present during scientific collection. We also don't want to dismiss any of the indigenous peoples because they have been around much longer than we have, and they know the plants a little bit better. So we're working with just really redefining what those plants might be. And something that is really has taken the market by storm is hybridization. We're starting to see hybrids of native plants, and they are being passed on as something that is native. And as you can see in this photograph, we have a purple coneflower on the left, and then I believe this is razzmatazz or raspberry. I don't know. It's something. It's a hybrid of a coneflower, of the purple coneflower, and so we're starting to get into this kind of philosophical debate. Is that one on the right, the hybrid? Is that really a native? Because would we actually see that in nature when we're out and about? So that's a good philosophical question to ask. It is proven, though, that native insects do prefer native plants, and they prefer plants that, if they are a hybrid, that closely resemble the native type. I was not able to find a land use cover for Nebraska, but I did find one for Iowa. If we go back about 200 years, this is what the landscape would look like. All that lime green space is prairie. It is kind of just a really good reminder of what the states used to look like. And then when you jump to today's time, all that brown, that's all agriculture. Those are crops. And then that light green is grassland pastures. So there's been pretty much altered. There's just a few pockets of prairies left, native soil, so on and so forth. And so that really helps us take into consideration when we start choosing plants that we want to help bring those native plants back into the landscape, because anywhere between 30 to 60% of green spaces is actually residential areas. So in urban and prairie urban locations. So that is something to consider. If you ever get a chance, one of the inspirations for this program today was by Carol David. She did a about 20-minute TED Talk on why prairies matter. It's a really nice little program, so you can watch it at your leisure. I think Elizabeth might, yep, there it is. Um, it's a nice link. She just talks about prairie ruminants. Prairies are something that are incredibly um, diverse, and they are disappearing and often goes unnoticed. And when we start talking about native plants, we have this misconception. We often hear clients talking to us that they just want to scatter down some seed. They just want to sprinkle down some seed, walk away, and you get this nice prairie looking landscape on your left hand side. But in most reality, all of us probably live in a community where we are in a about maybe a 5,000 square foot lot. Some of us do have a little bit more space, some of us don't. So we need to really manage those expectations that it's going to take a little bit of work on your part to get those native plants going. When it comes to managing those expectations, not all native plants make a great garden plant. If you know what this plant is, it's poison ivy. It is native and it has fantastic fall color. If you ever get a chance to see it in nature, it is just stunning in the fall, but none of us are going to plant it in our yard on purpose. Native plants are always pretty. Now, we know that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So there's this sometimes a misconception that a native plant might be prettier than a introduced plant. And they're often touted that they have less diseases or pest issues. And that's not always the case. If you grow Monardia or any type of bee balm, you know that you're going to get powdery mildew. And we often think that native plants just have nice superior growth, and that's not always the case. If you ever try grow redbud, it's a little gnarly. It's a great looking small tree for the landscape, but it does have its fair share of defects. But it is a nice plant to consider. And then when you talk about natives, we often talk about native soil, and there's very little of that left. It's most unlikely that any of us have native soils in our landscape, but that altered soils are not native. And another one, native plants can be invasive. Um, if you've ever seen black locust, that has been put on quite a few different lists throughout different states, that it's an invasive plant. It is native, but unfortunately, some of those checks and balances have been removed to keep that plant a little bit more tamed. And just quickly, I wanted to touch on about, oops, wrong slide. If you're ever working extension, you're rearranging your PowerPoint probably 10 minutes up to when the time to give it. So I apologize for being clunky. But when we talk about native plants, there's a lot of beauty in them. They do more than just provide nice curb appeal. They do help promote a lot of our our pollinators, our beneficial insects. So they just have a lot of fun. Excuse me. And when I was doing this homework for this program, I have this picture of root depth of native plants. We know that they could go down anywhere from 10 to 15 foot. They really penetrate into that soil profile, but there is a myth about them. Deep roots don't always mean that they have access to water. There's been actually research done for Nebraska at the Sand Hills Lab, and they found that most of our non-grass native plants can only take water from the top 30 inches of the soil profile, which I thought was pretty darn interesting. Anything beyond that 36-inch soil depth, that water is not being used by the plants. What those roots are doing, they're not quite sure, but there's a professor at UNL that is doing research with K-State to really try to figure out what those roots are doing once they hit that maximum root depth. If they're not taking water, what are they actually doing? So it's kind of fun to know that. When we start talking about plants, here's that link again if you want to try to get a copy of the plants that I will be talking about. We want to use some really good resources when we start looking at our native plants. The Missouri Botanical Garden Plant Finder is an excellent tool. If you've never used it, I would strongly encourage you to look for it. There's a lot of great extension publications that talk about plants, and that we can also use the weed watch list. Nebraska has 93 counties. We have 93 weed superintendents, and each county has a list of plants that are plants of concern. So you can always take a look at that before you go out and buy something. If you're a little bit leery, if you're not sure if it's going to be a good fit for the landscape, weed watch lists are a great resource. And Elizabeth shared this with us. I don't know if it was last month or the month before, but when we talk about trees, we want to look at the local tree inventory. And we want to follow this 30-20-10 rule, that we only want 30% of one plant family, 20% of a genus, and 10% of a specific species. Now, that space has never been well defined. They've never mentioned, like, are we just looking at a block? Are we looking at a mile radius? But walk around your neighborhood. If you see a bunch of the same tree, maybe it's a good idea to try something else for your landscape. And I do just want to make a point about introduced non-invasive plants. When you're looking at plants, we don't want to always dismiss some of our introduced plants. But again, use that good science before you decide to plant. We need to remember that urban and prairie urban communities are not natural. Most introduced plants are not invasive. But here's the kicker. Some of our native pollinators and wildlife has become dependent upon those introduced plants. Out in Washington State, the western bumblebee, it's endangered, it's in decline, and they actually found it on the multiflora rose. And that particular rose is a plant of concern in Washington State because it's spreading like wildfire, and they found that bumblebee on that rose. So if you are doing any type of retrofitting in the landscape, keep that in mind, that sometimes our bad plants are offering ecological value to maybe a particular pollinator that could be struggling. When you look for plants, again, I mentioned the Missouri Botanical Garden Plant Finder, an excellent tool. All you need to do is go to your favorite search engine and then type in the name and a space of and follow up with MOBOT. That's short for Missouri Botanical Garden, and it's likely that it will pull up the plant that you're looking for. It's not a complete database, but it's pretty exhaustive. It has a lot of great information on it. It's going to tell you if it's native to Missouri, the native range, height, bloom time, and even if it is a native plant, it's going to mention if it's invasive. So it's brutally honest. It will tell you plants that you should plant, maybe not plant. So it's a great tool. Thank you, Elizabeth. It's a great tool to use. Um, so please use that. There's a lot of other great resources out there as well. First off, let's talk a little about some of the different trees that you could choose from. Don't settle. Think long term. Think of sustainability. The autumn leaves maple. It's probably the #1 planted tree. It's grossly overplanted. We're creatures of habit. We like our neighbor's tree, so we plant one in it. But I like to remind people there's nothing stopping you from enjoying your neighbor's tree, from looking at it. You can enjoy it, but try to plant something different. And the first group of trees are hickories. They are only native to the United States. They're not in mainstream horticulture, so you're going to have to find those unique garden centers and nurseries that might have them. And they're a tall tree. They don't like salt, so this is not going to be a tree that's you're going to put on line the streets with. But they do make an excellent landscape plant if you have the space. The first one is the bitternut hickory. It's a tall tree. I want to say it could get about 70 feet tall and about half that in width. So it does have that nice pyramidal shape that not pyramidal, face shape that a lot of people do find attractive. It does produce a nut, so that's something to consider. We often find fruit producing trees as messy, but we can help combat that myth. Pig nut hickory is another hickory that you might want to consider. It's a shorter tree, about 60 foot tall, and what's really fascinating about this particular tree is the wood was used extensively as wagon wheels because they found it was stronger than steel, it had better strength, and it stood up a lot better than other products. And then the pecan. It's an edible nut. It is a tall tree, about 75 foot. So you want to make sure that it has plenty of space. But it does produce an edible nut, which can be kind of fun to work with. And we can't forget about the shagbark hickory. If you ever have a chance to go down to Lead Lodge in Nebraska City, they just have some outstanding specimens, shagbark hickories. They're a beautiful tree, nice exfoliating bark, but they do need that space. Oak trees are another excellent tree to look at. They are the dominant tree of the Midwest. It is the national tree of the nation, and sadly, the oak forests are declining. They're just not regenerating. When we want to look at oaks, there are some oaks that might be a good option for you to consider, like the blackjack oak. It is a smaller tree. It can grow maybe about 30 foot tall, but it has some excellent bark. When you look at that bark, it's that alligator creaky type. It has some great fall color and that unusual shape of the leaf of oaks. Shingle oak is another option. But that is, it doesn't look like an oak tree in the sense that the leaves are, they're not deeply lobed, almost looks more like a willow, but excellent fall color. And the shingle oak grows maybe about 50 foot tall. It is a slower growing oak tree. And so you want to keep that in mind. Post oak is another option. I believe this one is one of the rarest oaks in nature. It's a little bit scrub-like. It might not be an excellent landscape plant, but if you have that taste for something a little bit different, it might be something to consider. And chickpea. This is becoming a little bit more mainstream in horticulture. It's a nice looking tree. I think this one might grow 35, 40 foot tall. So it's a shorter tree. and it might be kind of fun to incorporate into the landscape. Then there's a lot more out there. We have the wavy leaf oak. The wavy leaf oak is not native to the Midwest, but it is native to the Southwest. That's why I have that little asterisk there. I thought it was fun. You may have never heard of this oak tree, but I just wanted to share it just to enlighten you. And then we have the scarlet, the gamble, the shumard oak. These are all other excellent oak trees to work into your landscape. There's the swamp white oak, the bur oak, the overcup oak. There are just a lot of oaks to consider. So take a look and you might be surprised what you could actually incorporate into your landscape. If you are looking for a consistently red color for fall, you might want to look at the Shumard oak. It just consistently provides that nice scarlet red for the fall. Other trees that you might want to consider, or maybe you want to take a look at, the black gum that is in the top left-hand corner. It happens to be one of my favorite trees. Every fall it has a different fall color. Sometimes it's yellow, sometimes it's red, and then sometimes it's red, green, and yellow. Just a really fascinating tree to watch come into maturity. On the bottom left is the tulip tree. Tulip trees are a fast-growing tree, a really large not flower leaf, and it does bloom. And then right next to it on that bottom right is the cucumber tree. It's a really fun name because it's a magnolia. But when those fruits start to develop, it looks like that bubblegum cucumber. They do well here in the actually urban environments. And up top is the ironwood. It goes by a couple different names, but it is like the hop hornbeam, I think is another common name. Nice looking tree, short, and it has a really interesting hops-like flower. So these are all options for you to look at. If you are in the Omaha metro area, you can always check out the OPPD Arboretum for inspiration. Maxwell Arboretum in Lincoln is another. You can always reach out to Nicole and Elizabeth and Ian to see where there might be some other arboretums in those neck of the woods that might help give you some inspiration for trees to look at. Let's talk about some small trees or big shrubs. And the first one is the white fringe tree. This one I was a little bit leery mentioning. The white fringe tree is in the same family as the ash tree. And we have seen the white fringe tree become an alternate host for the emerald ash tree borer. I don't know if that holds true for Nebraska, but further out east, I believe in Ohio, I have seen EAB jump to the fringe tree. Haven't heard anything about our neck of the woods. It's a beautiful tree. Amazing fragrance. It's multiple stem. You can trim it to be a tree or a shrub. But if you're looking for a showstopper, the white fringe tree might be something that you might want to consider. The pagoda dogwood. This is a small tree, more of a small tree than a shrub. It's in full flower right now. It has a really interesting architect with the branches, outstanding flowers, and it's a smaller tree, which really helps fit into an urban environment. And when we're talking about shrubs, you can take a look at the oak leaf hydrangea. It's our only native hydrangea, I believe. I believe it's our only native hydrangea. However, some years it might die back completely to the ground. Other years you might just get lots of nice new growth from last year's stems. So keep that in mind. Beautiful white flowers that fade to pink. The only downside is that Japanese beetles do like the oak leaf hydrangea. So it's a wonderful plant to consider if it can overlook some of that damage from Japanese beetles. Buttonbush. Buttonbush is a midsummer or mid-June shrub. It's a taller shrub. You're going to need to give it maybe a 10 by 10 footprint because it can be pretty large. So keep that in mind. But it has unique flowers that the pollinators definitely like. So if you're in the market for a large shrub, a buttonbush might be a good alternative, or option for you to look at. And then there is our native euonymus, the eastern wahoo. Um, Fascinating looking flowers. They're just really a lot of fun. It's not as showy as a burning bush, but it doesn't have all the issues that comes with the burning bush. Burning bushes are starting to escape cultivation. They're popping up where they're not wanted, whereas a eastern wahoo might be a good alternative than our, what I want to say, our native, not native, our introduced burning bush. And two others that you might want to look at is the red buckeye or the bottle brush buckeye. The red buckeye is about maybe 10 foot tall. It could get up to maybe 15 under the ideal conditions. It could be a trimmed into a tree or a multi-trunk shrub. And the bottlebuck brush eye, it's only maybe 10 foot tall, and it's known because it can actually flower in shaded locations. So if you're looking for a good understory plant, the bottlebuck brush eye, or bottle bush, I'm sorry, tongue tied, bottle brush buckeye might be a good option for you. Let's see, do we have any questions? All right. All right, Steve, thank you for that correction. The oak leaf is not native to the southeast. Smooth hydrangea is native as, all right, closest Missouri. All right. When we take a look at perennials, don't settle. So many people want quick and easy. They want a maintenance-free landscape, and that's kind of boring. There's so many wonderful plants to actually go out and take a look at. It's not saying that Stellidae or a daylily doesn't have its place in the landscape, but there's a lot better options out there. When you are looking at perennials, again, we're going to use that Missouri Botanical Finder, Plant Finder to help guide us. It's going to give us a lot of great information, but we want to plant with a purpose. We want to plant in mass. We always like that groups of three. It's just a little bit more appealing to the eye. We always want to try to spread that bloom time across the whole season. 3 seasons of bloom, everything from March through October. Look at different flower shapes, flower colors. We want to diversify the plant families. We do want to try to avoid some of those double flowers, and don't discount height, staggering those flower heights, having stuff flower at ground level all the way from 3 to 6 foot off the ground, maybe even taller, are all things that we want to take into consideration. The first plant is the prairie violet. We're talking about violets, plants that people are trying to kill in the turf. Prairie violets are unique in the sense that they have a very deeply lobed leaf. They grow maybe about 6 inches tall, and they should be in bloom about now, but they like high organic soils, so you might have to do a little bit of soil amending to get these to grow. But when you plant violets, they are a host, caterpillar host for a couple different butterflies, and they do make a nice ground cover. So don't dismiss violets. Another fun plant, to look at is Horticulture. I don't know if I'm saying that quite right. This is in the borage family. Bright sunshine yellow flowers. It's a nice mounding plant. It could grow maybe about 12 inches tall, but it would be in bloom about right now, and it's just a nice addition to the landscape. Being that it's in the borage family, that's really going to help diversify your landscape, and it's just a really fun plant. Another interesting plant, it's a little unkept, is the ground plum. It's something that you might like, you might not. The purple flowers are really cute. I really enjoy these. They're nice, bright purple. But when you look at the other photograph, they actually produce a plum-like fruit. Don't eat it, but it is something that is a little bit different for the landscape. It's a ground coverish type plant. It does like to sprawl out along the soil surface. So if you want something a little bit different, you might want to look at the ground plum. Some of these you might already know or have in your landscape. Penstemon. There's lots of different penstemons out there. This one is the foxglove penstemon on the left. Um, Taller flower spikes. They are a little bit more sturdy, so they don't always they don't flop. But Nebraska, it's always windy, so that can always be the case. It could be they could flop on you. In the middle is Amazonia. They are in bloom right now. They are some places they have finished up flowering. Nice shrub-like form. Uh, this is one of our few perennials that actually provides us full color. So when they're done blooming, they do make a nice shrub-like plant, but then they do offer some nice fall addition. And then the Thermopsis. This is an interesting plant. I forget the common name, but it's a taller plant in the bean family, I do believe, but does produce those bright yellow flowers. I want to say it gets about 5 foot, maybe 6 foot tall. Um, when we purchased some, it outgrew, it grew larger than what the plant label said, so we had to move it. On the left, that bright red flower. This is one of, yes, thank you, Nicole. Um, this is one of my new favorite plants. This is the royal catchfly. Uh, Stunning bright red flowers. You cannot beat it. Um, does very well. It has sticky foliage, so keep that in mind when you're working around it. If you're working with it, you might want to wear gloves because you'll get like this sticky goo on your hands. In the middle, this is Hoary vervain or verbena. Uh, Tall plant, maybe 4 to 5 foot tall. But what's really nice about this plant is that it's a strong, sturdy plant. It does not flop. And you get an extended bloom time because the flowers typically open, I believe, from the bottom up. So you do get a nice extended flower time. And what's really interesting about this is that there is a bee specialist that only forages on the verbena. So if you're trying to help promote conservation and pollinators, you might want to consider it. It's can be also short-lived, so keep that in mind. And then next to it, I believe, is the prairie onion. It's that nodding shaped flower. What's really nice about this, it's in the onion family, so nothing's going to nibble on it. So if rabbit or deer are a problem in your landscape, this might be something to consider. It does produce that nice bunching foliage, semi-evergreen. It can self-seed, so keep that in mind. Then some of you may have grown the plant in the middle. That is the purple poppy mallow. It's a ground cover-like plant, magenta flowers, and it's a moundy plant, kind of like the wild geranium. So it does take up a nice footprint. So if you're looking to have a ground cover type plant, something to consider. On the left of it is the bush poppy mallow. This is a more upright plant. Um, it's a little different. The flowers are the same bright magenta color, but they're held up out of the canopy of the plant. So if you're looking for something that really elevates those flowers, unique color, you might want to consider them. The downside is rabbits love this plant. So good luck. I wish you all the best of luck. Might need to put some cages around it, let it mature, then take the cages off. And then the last one is not on your list, and I apologize. This is the tube penstemon. Um, Slender flower spikes. The flowers are just super cute. Small white tube, beautiful plant. If you can find it, is something that you definitely would want to consider putting it into your landscape. Silverleaf scurf pea. When I first found this plant, it was in Lake Zorinsky. Super excited, and I've never found it since. But it has a nice uh, purple, blue. It's horticulturists call it purple. I would call it blue, but it has some nice flowers. But what's really interesting about this plant, it has that nice fuzzy leaf texture. It goes very well with our native grasses. You'll need to add some native grasses or other perennials to help keep it upright, or else it's going to be a little bit leggy, which some people don't like. It is a mid-season flower, so it's midsummer flower. So it's kind of fun. If you can find this plant, it would be worthwhile to put it into your landscape. Another plant in the borage family that's a little bit different is false groundwill. Again, not sure if I'm saying that name right, but it has that fuzzy leaf texture. And so we don't get a lot of accidental nibbling on it from rabbits or deer, but it has a really unique flower, a nodding type flower, pure white, and it does have that long flower structure that sticks out of the middle. It's just a lot of fun. I can't say I've seen it in any type of available in the marketplace. None of our specialty nurseries, I believe, carry it yet, but it is something to consider. Again, to help diversify the landscape and if we're battling any type of rabbits or whatnot. Coneflowers. There are just a lot of great species type coneflowers out there. On the left, that is the pale purple coneflower. Strong, sturdy stems, so it doesn't flop, but you get those reflexed, I believe that's the right term, reflexed flower petals that just drape down. Um, Really attractive in the landscape. Like I said, strong, sturdy stems. The one on top of the yellow, the angustifolia, that goes by a couple different common names. I forget them, so I apologize. But the angustifolia is a flopper, so it might not be the best fit unless you're adding other tall plants with it. But it's another great coneflower. And then below it is our only true yellow coneflower, the Paradoxa. Bright yellow flower petals, just does really well in the landscape. I've People have shared that the yellow coneflower can flop, but that is typically in a space that might get more water than it should. Some of our native plants can get floppy on us if they get too much water. There's a lot of a lot of other coneflowers out there to look at too. But this is also one of our, like I said earlier in the program, We see a lot of hybrids of our coneflowers. If you can get straight species types, I think you're going to be happy. Um, they just tend to be a little bit more durable than some of our cultivars of the native coneflowers. If you live out west, the yellow stargrass might be a good plant for you to consider. It does like slightly more sandy soil, bright yellow flowers, super cute. It is low growing. Let me see. Um, yes, it does form colonies, but it's not overly aggressive. Um, Long-bearded hawkweed. It looks like a weed, and it actually does quite well here. It's in the aster family, so people think have brought it in before and said that it was like a dandelion on steroids. Um, its identifying features is that basal stem is just really super fuzzy. Like I said, it may be a plant for you to think about, but we'll leave that up to you. More plants. In this far left, this is going to be our upright prairie coneflower. It's not a true coneflower in the Echinacea genus, but it's different. It can flop, so keep that in mind. The plant in the middle, this is our ashy gray sunflower, or ashy sunflower. I apologize. A tall plant. Um, got taller than expected. We're talking about 6 foot tall. This is a colony forming plant. It can spread through stolons or rhizomes. Once you plant one, you're going to have plenty. So keep that in mind, especially if you're in a urban environment where you're sharing property lines. You want to be careful where you put this because it will go underneath fences, and your neighbors will. They might like it. They might not like. Might not. And then you have Monardia. Um, there's a couple different species. There is lots of fun Monardias out there that you can plant and try. Some of them do kind of get a little bit leggy, but they're a fun plant to look at, and you should definitely incorporate them into your landscape. And then Liatris. Can't beat Liatris. I believe both Nicole and Ian mentioned that Liatris was one of their favorite plants. This is the dotted blazing star. What's nice about this plant is that it has a taproot. It doesn't form those corms that a lot of people are familiar with, but it has a candelabra growth habit. So we get multiple flower spikes from this plant, and they are just a really fun plant. There are quite a few Liatris species out there to take a look at. All of them do fairly decent in the landscape. Um, my own personal experience, bunnies have liked to chew on this plant, so just keep that in mind. All right. This is the only annual that I'm going to be talking about today, and this is Partridge Pea. Um, it uh, it's been reclassified a couple different times. This plant has if you've ever gone to the garden center and bought the sensitive plant where you touch the leaves and they fold up, this plant can do that too. It produces a pea-like seed pod, and it can self-seed. And so it comes back fairly consistently, and it can form nice colonies of the plant. If you have the space for it, this is something that you might want to consider. And if you're ever on Jeopardy, this plant has extra floral nectaries, just like peony bushes. That's how they bring the insects to the flower. They have these little organs on the petioles that will attract the insects. The flower itself does not produce nectar. Two other plants, I didn't know quite where to put them in this program. Um, Lead plant and indigo bush. Both of these plants are considered shrubs. And lead plant, which is on the left, um, more specifically, is considered a subshrub, and sometimes it dies back down to the ground, sometimes it does not. It's the flowers are just I find just amazing because you have those bright yellow orange stamens that contrast against those purple flowers. The indigo bush, very similar flower color and shape, but it's more of a woody plant. I want to give you a fair warning. The indigo bush has been tagged as invasive because it likes wet locations. So if you plant this somewhere around a pond, a natural pond, or if your neighbor likes to water a lot, this plant can sucker. So keep that in mind. If you're going to try it, put it in a dry location, and that will help keep suckering to a minimum, but it is a shrub woody plant about 6 foot tall. Then we have compass plant. Um, this is just a tall plant. It is an amazing plant. The leaves, the basal leaves of these plant always align themselves to north and south, so which is kind of interesting. Wonderful plant to consider, but it's really tall, so keep that in mind. Spiderworts, there's a couple different species of spiderworts. They do like a little bit more damp locations, so keep that in mind. It can self-seed, and it can be prolific at self-seeding. So if you're in a tight space, maybe not the best plant because it can take over. One of the downsides or negative comments that we hear about the spiderworts is once it's done blooming, it's not necessarily attractive. You can always just deadhead it, and that will give you opportunity to keep it a little bit more tidy. Goldenrod, lots of different goldenrods out there. Some of them are clumpers, some of them are spreaders, so keep that in mind. Gray-headed coneflower, tall plant, really nice looking, but it needs some support. So if you're going to plant this particular one, plant it with some other tall perennials or maybe small shrubs to help keep it upright. Ironweed, lots of different ironweeds out there, a lot of great species. Um, Tall, sturdy stems. It gets its common name for a reason. Those are just really great, sturdy stems. The really tall ones can get blown over, but some of the shorter ones can really take our Nebraska wind and keep upright. So, great plant to look at. They are in the sunflower family, just that bright magenta purple flower color. Rattlesnake master. This is in the carrot family. Um, some people like it, some people don't. It just has that really unique flower head, and that foliage looks like a yucca. So it offers a different architect to the landscape, and it can self-seed, so please keep that in mind. The milkweeds. Lots of milkweeds to choose from. The one on the left, the speciosa, I apologize, I did not get that onto your list. I swapped it out last minute, but nice looking flower, just a pale pink. In the middle, we have our butterfly milkweed, and the next to it is our swamp milkweed. These are our clumpers. The butterfly and the swamp milkweed don't tend to produce rhizomes and spread by rhizomes, but they can self-seed and pop up in the strangest places of your landscape. And then on the far right is the prairie milkweed, just a really nice bright pink flower. It does spread by rhizomes, so keep that in mind. If you're trying to be a good neighbor, it can go under the fence. But all of these are great options for the garden. When you are planting milkweed, you may want to consider there's been some new research if you're planting milkweed for the monarchs. Put the milkweed on the perimeter of the garden. There was a study done in Kentucky that found that those plants placed at the perimeter of the garden had more egg laying and caterpillars reaching adulthood. You have this list. This is not a comprehensive list, but people really like lists. So here are some plants for the sun. Again, this is not comprehensive. It's just a very small snapshot of some plants that you might want to take a look at. And here is some plants for shade. Uh, the asterisks are going to be the ones that can do full shade. All the other plants can handle part shade. So depending on your landscape, take a look at some of these plants. They might be kind of fun to work into your landscape. And where am I? And one of the biggest questions that we often get, there's several of us from the Habitat team on today, and we often get asked, when is the best time to plant your native plants? When's the best time to do any of your gardening? If you've heard me talk before, I will always tell you, you strike when the iron is hot. When you have that inspiration, go out and plant. We did our native planting July 3rd of 21. It was 90 degrees that day. And this is what it kind of looks like right now. Oh, a year ago right now. Um, uh, the plants took off. They did just fine. We did have to provide some supplemental watering, but they have been successful. And like I said, there's just a lot of great plants out there to take a look at. And then wrapping up, we appreciate your feedback. So if you have a moment, we would love to have you fill out this survey. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, John, Mary Jane, Nicole, Elizabeth, and Ian for being on today. And have a great afternoon.